What's up, guys? My name is Will Spencer, and I love movies so much that I nailed some old DVDs to my wall as decoration. Pretty, huh? I don't have a tripod yet, and I don't have a lapel microphone, so the way we're gonna have to start this YouTube channel is with handheld and my phone audio. So I don't want to do anything too big, so I thought I'd just give some quick thoughts and some reviews on some recent 2020 films I saw in like about the past week. Starting with The Lodge comes us from the directors of Goodnight Mommy, and I think they prove with these two movies that they are very good with tone and atmosphere. Their framing and camera choices really add a lot of intensity. Like this year's indie movie, The Assistant, made you feel like you're being watched. This movie kind of makes you feel like you're being trapped. It makes you feel just like you're being just like forced into this area, this corner, and you just can't get out. It's really, really, really good directing, I think. It's very beautifully directed with a lot of fear. And I think what they're trying to dig into with this movie is how trauma can affect a person and how can it reverberate throughout your entire life, and how being controlled or being a controlling person can affect those around you. And I think both those are really well realized, and I think Riley Keough gives a very good performance. My main issue with this is that it has a third act twist that I don't mind the idea of, but I think it could use a whole lot more setup for the execution to flow a lot better. But the way it is in the movie, it just doesn't get there. It just needs a little more just justification in the characters, I think, to like justify why it's there and why it would make sense. But the way it's standing, I think I'm a sucker for good atmosphere and good tension and good tone, and I think this has this in spades. So on an increment of 0.5 and up, I'd go with a 7.5 for this one. High Note comes to us from director Nisha Ganatra, who made last year's Late Night. It stars Dakota Johnson and Tracee Ellis Ross, who I think are giving two very charming performances. It must have been very fulfilling for Ross to play her mother in a way, R&B star Diana Ross. You can tell this is kind of fulfilling for her in a way, and I think she's having a blast with it. Other cast includes breakout star from last year, Kelvin Harrison Jr., but I didn't think he was given a lot to do in this movie. I could have looked for more. Maybe that's just me, and I got so used to Kelvin Harrison Jr., the dramatic star with Lucid Waves last year. But I think he could have been given a lot more to do. Ice Cube's in it. He's not given a lot either. Bill Pullman's in it. Not a lot there either. I really like the way the characters are presented for Dakota Johnson and Tracee Ellis Ross. I like that they both are grounded in humanity in a way. Dakota Johnson follows her dreams, and she's really smart. And by the way, I love that in movies when a character is able to be really smart and it's not used cheaply in the plot in any way. She's good at what she does, but she can be a little difficult in a way. So I think that's a very nuanced take on that type of character. And Tracee Ellis Ross, her character, Grace, she can be a little much. She's a little vapid, like most Hollywood stars can be, most music artists can be at times. But you can tell that's just because she wants to make her art, and her race and her gender can make that very hard in the industry for her. So you see that she's getting a little desperate. And I really like the way those two characters were presented. I wish there was more of Ross at times. It gets very Johnson heavy. That's not a bad thing, though, because she's certainly up to the task. But I could have used more Ross, because I think she's easily probably the best part of this movie. I think Ganatra is very good at directing actors. She gives them a lot of room to breathe, and she's able to set up the camera in a way where it flows and adds a lot of style, but never overpowers the actors. Here, I like her aesthetic choice of presenting Hollywood in this very bright, very dreamy place, but it's also very grounded in a way. And I think what this movie's trying to say on a thematic level is that nothing can come easy, but with hard work you can get most things. And I wish that was a little more well presented in the movie, because the way it's in the movie, everything seems to come kind of easy. It follows a formula to a T almost, and it just ends up feeling very fluffy and very sugary, almost like a Richard Curtis movie. But what Richard Curtis does is he also makes the characters very fluffy and sugary, so it all just melds in a way to make it entertaining. Here, so much of it feels so grounded, and then that juxtaposed against this very easy plot just didn't really meld well for me. But if you have a mom, she'll probably enjoy it, because my mom really enjoyed it. She said it's one of her new favorite movies, and I think she said something about that for Late Night last year. So Ganatra makes good mom movies, I think, and that's not an insult because we all got moms that like movies. So on half point increments, I'm gonna go with a 5.5 for this one. I just couldn't get it to a 6. Hope Gap comes to us from writer-director William Nicholson. It had a festival debut last year, but in March of this year it got its theatrical release. A little background to how I found this movie. My mom and I, who like to watch a lot of films together, were looking on Amazon Prime for something to watch. And as it usually happens on streaming services and how Amazon gets you, is that you get tired of their catalog, so you start, just flirting with the pay stuff a little bit. And we saw that Hope Gap was available for 99 cents, so we rented it because, that's a reasonable price, we thought. And we both love Annette Bening, so we decided to watch it. And unfortunately, this is just a very basic, very withholding take on a dead marriage story. Just a marriage falling apart. Beat by beat, it just follows this to a T, and it's never able to give it any subtext or like a fresh take or any emotion anyway. The directing, the shot structure, it's fine. It doesn't add to it in any way, really. It looks okay. It just didn't make it any more compelling because it just feels so bland and emotionless. I really just heavily disliked a lot of this movie. I was probably going to go really low with it, but there was a few positives that I'll get to in a second. Annette Bening, she's a legend. She is good in this movie, but someone chose for her, maybe she chose it, I don't know, to have a British accent, and it feels like an actress trying very hard to have a British accent. It's not bad, it just feels like she's trying hard. And I think we're almost to blame for that, because we didn't give her that Oscar, so I'm sorry. Bill Nye also stars. Bill Nye is always a safe bet. He's good. He's good, but he's never elevated by the writing or the filmmaking. I think we have to give a lot of credit to Noah Baumbach for what he did with Marriage Story, how he gave that so many layers and so many textures and so many emotions. Because you see when all that's stripped away from a story like this, just how just inconsequential and just lifeless it can feel. It turns around a little bit. There's a really good mediation scene that has Annette Bening really popping a lot, like she usually does. There's a cool idea where she names her new dog that's supposed to fill her husband's place in her house after him in a way. Her husband's name was Edward. She names the dog like Eddie, which I thought was kind of funny and kind of shows that she's a little bit controlling. Which also, another thing is that the way these two characters are presented makes them both look like the worst because they're not giving much development, and all they ever talk about in the movie are both their flaws. So I'm like, why do I like these two people at all? I hate it when movies do that, when it's trying to develop everything else. It just never makes them feel like real people. It's kind of just a big pot of nothing. Not a lot to glean from here. Just kind of, you've seen this movie 1,000 times. You see this movie again, it'll be 1,001 probably. The last 20 minutes I thought kind of turned around just a little bit, because it kind of looks like a grief and how we can find our identity in a way, and how the sadness never really changes, but at least we can take away something from it. I thought that was a very nuanced take, and I was all like, why wasn't the whole movie this? It's very frustrating. 0.5 and up, I'll go with a 4.5 for this one. And this concludes my review roundup of some recent 2020 releases. Once I get some better equipment, I'll probably try to do a review roundup of, I've seen probably around 40 2020 releases this year, so I'll try to get a review roundup for that. Follow me on Letterboxd. I'll put it down in the description. Also Twitter. Thanks! If you like movies, keep on watching them.